Welcome back to another episode of Chronically Real and Clinically Relevant. This is Dr. Stacy Greeter, psychiatrist. I am joined today in place of my usual co-host, Ali Garza, with my psychiatric PA, Bethany Martin, and Dr. Lucia Cheng, both an expert on gaming and an avid gamer herself. Welcome, Dr. Cheng. Tell us about you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here. I am a psychiatrist who specializes in uh, primarily reproductive psychiatry, but my kind of less known niche is also working with adult video gamers because I am
Hmm.
also a very avid gamer and have been for most of my life, and I consider video gamers my tribe. And so I am very passionate about advocating for video games and mental health. I volunteer in multiple video gaming and mental health organizations. And my practice, I have a private practice. It is 100% telehealth. So it tries to really cater to the needs of gamers who basically kind of live online.
Yeah. Yes,
Um,
a
I
whole
am
world
also
online.
very proud to say that I am also one of I'm the first author in the chapter of the new APA
Yeah,
guidebook on internet gaming disorder, where I talk
long
about
overdue.
culture of video games. And so, I encourage people to go out and buy the book. It's a great book.
What is it you feel like you want psychiatrists to best understand about the culture of gaming?
That it is a culture. Okay. It is not a dysfunction. It is not a illicit activity. It is not by and of itself a addiction. There is a
Mm-hmm.
culture, there is a society, there is a language, there is a mindset, there is a very strong sense of connectedness amongst the gaming community, as well as little, subcultures within the gaming culture, depending on what kind of games you play and what genres
Mm-hmm.
there are, like the FPS players versus, the turn-based strategy people
Hmm.
for people like me who have no hand-eye coordination. Um,
Right.
and so understanding that there is a whole
Yes.
world within that video gaming culture and not just, homogenize it and
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, this is an addictive activity, you just need to turn it off. Which is
Yeah.
the absolute worst response to be
You would
dealing with
hope,
a gamer.
right? You would hope as psychiatrists we want to understand our patient's world, what it means to them. Okay, what are some of your favorite subcultures within gaming, the ones that are kind of most your tribe, would
Um,
you say?
the so I would say JRPGs, which stands for Japanese role-playing game. The I grew up on like the classics like Final Fantasy series and Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana. And so, there's a whole kind of separate mindset in those type of games.
Hmm.
But I also love puzzle games. I love cozy
Yeah.
games, like Stardew Valley and
Hmm.
uh, uh, oh gosh,
Animal
uh,
Crossing.
Animal Crossing. Thank you.
And I'm getting on with the Harvest Moon. Now it's called Story of Seasons stuff now. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's all those other genres of games. I recently I have I'm most addicted to the Dungeons and Dragons based Baldur's Gate 3. The whole
Baldur's Gate
Baldur's Gate
3.
series, the Elder Scrolls series, very, very good. So yeah, I love those games. Basically anything that does not require like rapid hand-eye coordination. I'm
Oof,
really
yeah, that's where I'm at too, honestly. Okay, Baldur's Gate, yeah. So if you had to describe some, um, what about these games gives you pure joy? What would you say? That can be a hard
uh
question. Like, how would you describe like the pure joy aspects for you?
using a different part of my brain. Um,
Hmm.
it's for
Hmm.
me a way to relax and kind of be myself and entertain and kind of let loose aspects of myself that I really really can't professionally. And, on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis or as a parent, there's things you
Yep.
cannot do, cannot say in the professional and parenting capacity. In games, you can go around murdering
Yeah.
monsters, and that's a great thing.
Hmm.
You could be swinging axes around and casting fireballs at things that you really can't do
Hmm.
normally. So, it's really relaxing in a way. And, I love the cozy games a lot of times for kind of how monotonous it is because you wake up and it's like, I am going to water my crops. And now I'm going to go feed my chickens. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
all I have to worry
It's
about
true.
right
And
now.
it's
It's
like
awesome.
the relationships in those games are like, I gave you a thing you like. Hearts go up. I
Yes,
know you like it.
yes,
Yay. We are more
yes,
friends now.
yes.
Love it. And so Bethany, what gives you pure joy in your gaming experience? Tell us about your gaming culture and what gives you pure joy in your gaming experience.
So my gaming experience, I mean, I've been playing Halo for over 20 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dr. Chang. It's a great way to kind of disconnect. I think it's a way to, express myself in ways I wouldn't otherwise. Truthfully, it's like a bonding experience for me and my husband. It's something we do every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. It's created a good common ground for a lot of my patients too, that I wouldn't have a
Yeah.
lot in common with otherwise. Yeah, I mean, I love playing it.
How are you finding this common grounded session and using that therapeutically, would you
Uh,
say?
I feel like for especially for teens or a lot of neurodivergent folks, I feel like a part of all of our intake appointments is to like ask about like interests or hobbies or what makes the individual happy. And I with young people especially, it's like whenever they say video games, it's I kind of light up.
Yes.
And then I always ask, okay, which ones, what console, and then how do you play? How often do you play? And yeah, and I think from there it just kind of eases any type of tension that might be from having a psychiatry appointment. And yeah, I'm thankful to have it.
Yeah. How are you using this gaming culture therapeutically in your work, Dr. Cheng?
So a lot of I work with adults, so I don't work with the
Hmm.
kids or the teens. Most of those who land in my practice are young adults generally, sometimes, in their 30s, sometimes 40s, where they're coming to me either because there's family pressure. They haven't been able to hold on to a job, or they aren't in relationships, they're living at their parents' home, their families are worried about them, or they're dropping out of school and they weren't able to
Hmm.
finish their program. And their parents or their families are like, they don't seem to be able to connect socially. They don't have friends, they don't have relationships, and they're just sitting in front of their computer all day. Um, and they're not thriving. Or, they themselves have decided I am not doing well and I'm not hitting the milestones that, society expects me to hit, and I feel bad and it's time, I feel ready to get some help for it. So that's how they usually land in my office. And, I asked them for the ones that come here openly saying that they spend a lot of time on their computer. I first question, what are you doing on your computer? And what happens is, a lot of times they're like, oh, I play some video games. They try to kind of minimize it, almost kind of like a shame
Mhm.
type of thing. And when I hear that, my automatic question is like, oh, so what games do you play? And they look at me kind of funny a lot of times. It's almost kind of them thinking it's like, what does this psychiatrist know about video games? So they'll name off some game, and most of the time I know what the game is. Even if I haven't played it myself, I'm like aware of the game at least, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that game. What class do you play, or what group do you play in, or etc. I ask them something that I know about the detail of the game, and they'll look at me kind of like initial shock and do like a second take. And then they'll answer the question and they're like, how do you know about this? So I share with them that I'm an avid gamer, and that usually kind of brings a little bit of spark to their eyes, and they perk up a little bit, and they sit up a little bit straighter, and then they want to talk about it a little bit. And I think that kind of helps rapport almost instantly, because
Mhm.
suddenly they're like, oh, this is somebody who understands video games. There isn't this automatic negative reaction to
Hmm.
me playing video games, so maybe we can actually have a conversation.
Yeah, there's going to be some acceptance there.
100%.
Hmm. Yeah. So, what do you feel like are the most, mm, I would say, okay, m- the negative misconceptions about gaming that you would most like to correct? Yeah, I probably could have asked that question differently, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, what are the
Yes,
negative
I
miscon?
know
Yeah,
exactly
cool.
what you
You
mean.
get what I'm saying now.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it when
Let's go over
and
them.
it go my answer goes along with how every time I mention to somebody, oh, my
Okay.
other specialty is to work with video gamers, the first
Yes.
question is, oh, so you work with gaming addiction. And that's kind of
Right.
like the immediate reaction that
Mhm.
people think video gaming addiction. Okay. And it's
Hmm.
almost like a knee-jerk reaction. And that is just so not what reality is. And I think
Or
that's probably the most
automatic
important
failure
thing.
to thrive,
Yeah,
or yeah.
yeah. And the truth is, and the book covers this in excruciating
Yes.
detail. Like the actual evidence for or the actual prevalence for people who really meet true criteria for a video game addiction is really low, like less than 1%. It
Hmm.
is much, much, much
Of
lower
gamers,
than
less than 1%.
yes. Lower than people who are addicted to alcohol, of people who drink alcohol. Okay. It's much
Yeah.
lower than that. So it's actually more dangerous to be drinking alcohol and get addicted than it is for you to play video games and get addicted. So again, true addiction is extremely, extremely low.
Okay.
So the question, of course, then is like, why are they spending so many hours of their day and so much of their life video gaming and not participating in the world? And that's where the deep conversations have to come in because you have to understand the why. What
Mhm.
are they playing? How are they playing it? And what is it about being in the game that hooks them so much more than what real life can offer them? So I kind of think of it when I'm doing a video gaming assessment, kind of as that whole my old middle school and high school English teachers teaching me when you're evaluating a book, you ask the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how. And so I kind of approach it in that sense of what is the content of the game? What are they getting out of the game? And what is it that they're getting in the game that they cannot get in real life that keeps them from wanting to participate more in real life? And
Yeah.
so often of the time, there's a huge prevalence of neurodiversity in video gamers,
Mhm.
and it's so hard for people who have autistic, be on the autistic spectrum or have ADHD or both, or even, just severe social anxiety, severe depression, borderline psychosis. Those people, they really struggle with real life social interactions. And so the
Hmm.
game environment is kind of democratizing in a sense because people don't know anything about you other than what you allow them to know. You can build your avatar however you want. Nobody knows your socioeconomic status, whether or not you've got any handicaps or disabilities, what the color of your skin is, how tall or short
Hmm.
or thin or fat you are, whether or not you speak with an accent. You are how you want to present yourself to these people, removing all those other factors. And really in the game, the only elements that are important is how good of a player you are and how you treat other people.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Very egalitarian. So okay, what is internet gaming disorder? How do we recognize that?
So internet gaming disorder is when it's very similar actually to a lot of chemical addiction. So you're looking at that you get withdrawals when you are not playing certain types of games. There has to be certain elements to the game where it causes kind of a dopamine reaction for you. Like, what do you get a rise out of? From the game. So for, unfortunately, it's like for some, it's the gambling aspect of being in the games, or it's the, winning points consistently over time type of aspect. Generally, it's not really like the social interaction aspect, because that's just a social interaction. So it's usually connected to some type of a dopamine surge aspect within the game. They get withdrawal symptoms when they are removed from that particular type of trigger. And of course, the lack of control, having multiple negative social or legal or financial consequences from being in that game, not meeting, able to meet obligations, also maybe some somatic symptoms when they're taken away from the game, they can't sleep, they lose their appetite, stuff like that.
Yeah. So similar to any other
Hmm.
addiction. Who do you feel like is most vulnerable to internet gaming disorder? I
I
guess
would
you
say
answered it
people,
some already. You said
I mean,
people, like
genetic
something is missing in
vulnerability
their life. What
would.
do you think? Yeah,
Well, the thing is, you can't even really say that because it's more nuanced than that. Something missing in their life could be they're missing a supportive family environment, and they're getting it from within their game with their found family in the game. People are missing, a non-abusive relationship that they're in, and they're having healthier relationships with other people in the game. So I don't think that that's quite it. I think
right.
there is a genetic component in that people
Mm-hmm.
do tend to just be more vulnerable to certain addictions. It's like you
Period.
take somebody away from alcohol, but then they end up getting hooked on marijuana. You take them away from the marijuana, they end up getting hooked on gambling. It's like they're always searching, seeking that dopamine surge, and that dopamine trigger. And I think that genetically is what makes people vulnerable to actual addiction. Not so much I'm tired of being bullied in person, or I can't read facial expressions in other people and it makes me super uncomfortable. That kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I don't have to deal with that in the game. So it is a bit of a reward structure, but it's not like a dopamine surge type of reward structure.
Um, I also think I would say, being autistic myself, that world building um is big for me, to be in a new world or a different world. And then to have all this like detailed information to collect about said new world is kind of exciting. What about violence in video games? I do hear parents concerned about violence in video games. Do you have thoughts on that, Dr. Cheng?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's only been discussed like what every few months whenever we have a school
Right.
shooting. They one of the first things to look at, does this person play violent video games? And oh, it's the violent video games.
Right.
And the thing is, after all these decades of psychological research, the fact that we have never been able to find a clear correlation between playing violent video games and violent behaviors really should
Mm-hmm.
tell us that I don't think there's anything there. Um, there's been, and if you actually look at, and the book actually covers this, if you look at the details of how certain psychological studies have done, that seems to correlate increased aggressive behaviors with after having played violent games, you'll realize that the research methodology is actually quite suspect in how they're determining this. The
Hmm.
way that they're determining
Okay, how
a
so?
more aggressive behavior, like for
Yeah.
example, are they putting more chili sauce into a person's, like, food that some supposed unknown other subject might eat, that will cause more of a spicy reaction
Right.
after they played a video game versus not having played a video game. Um, it's kind of dumb, really.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they will give you like certain sentences, or like let you read a short story, and then how you would describe that story in a summary afterward, if they're using more aggressive terminology to describe the story after they
Okay.
the methodology is really, really questionable. Something that a couple of researchers who were gamers, I don't remember their names off the top of my head. I don't think I can pronounce them anyways, but they are in the book. What a couple of researchers back about 10 years ago, who were actually gamers and like they understood games
Yeah.
themselves, what
Yeah.
they figured out was, well, looking at the games that were used for those studies, the games that were deemed violent actually were also more challenging and stressful to play, as opposed to the non-violent ones, which was like calmer.
Mhm.
Okay, so what they did was they did another experiment where they had two people play the exact same game, except one version of the game, it was like some type of timed game. One version of the game was timed. There was more, it went faster. And there was that they changed the input settings on the controller, so you actually had to hit it harder in order to get a response. So they kind of they sabotaged the controller to make the controller harder to use. The
Okay.
frustration level, exact same game. The frustration level on the game that was on the version that was more challenging to play
Mm-hmm.
led to similarly more aggressive responses in the exact same type of responses that they were using before, when they were just saying tying it to playing violent video games. So they determined that the violent video games that were being used for the studies was causing more, a surges of stress hormone that was causing more aggressive responses, because people were getting more riled up playing the games because it was more aggressive, it was timed, it was more stressful, it was harder to hit the win condition, as opposed to some calm, cozy game like, you know, take your time to hit the bubbles or something like that. So there's that. Um, I don't think
Yeah.
that there is truly a connection between playing violent video games and increased violent behavior. I think that certain people who have a predilection for violent behavior will seek out materials and media that have
Yeah.
more explicit content and more violent content, because not
That it
only
appeals to them.
are you saying that, are they finding that these people are playing
Right.
Grand
Bethany.
Theft Auto and first person, violent shooters, they're also listening to explicit content rap music that has,
Yeah.
things about very violent material. They're reading like, very polarized and very nationalistic or very violent, stuff on the internet, specific books that they're seeking out. Like their media material choices all trend towards the more violence and aggressive anyways. So I think it's a reverse connection, not a violent video games to violent behaviors.
And
Yep.
100% agree. Yeah.
Yes. Um, what are your okay, so what are your thoughts? And if you have any questions, Bethany, please don't hesitate to jump in, you know? What are your thoughts as an avid Halo player? And if you don't have any thoughts, we can move forward. No pressure.
My thoughts on like violent video games
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, what Dr. Cheng has mentioned so far.
yeah, I mean, I feel like Dr. Chang is going to be like well more versed on like the research behind it, but
Hmm.
I mean, through I mean, anecdotally, like with all of my patients, with all of my personal experience with playing video games, I don't think I've ever met a violent video game player. I am curious about what you think of the age of gamers. I know you don't work with kids, but like where like would you say like there's an age that's like too young to play Halo or goodness like GTA, like Grand Theft Auto? Like would there be a do you agree with like the rating system in place for games, or do you think that's some wiggle room there?
So I think age really does have a huge thing, part to do with it. I work with adults, so
Mhm.
fully formed brain and everything, but I'm also a parent and I'm raising a gaming kid. And so, had to be very intentional and very mindful of what we expose my daughter to. My husband is also a gamer. We actually met over playing video games. And so the whole family has been a gaming family from the very beginning. And my kid has had a little, kid-sized controller since she was 6 months old. So
Same.
she grew up
Oh,
in,
I gotta see a photo of
gaming.
that.
Um, I mean, just as a family policy, like we do not limit her screen time. We have certain policies for what, like, she has to finish the stuff that she needs to get done, her homework, her music practice, cleaning
Yeah,
her room, her chores. Like,
Absolutely.
she has to meet her daily obligations first. And then once she meets that, she could spend as much time gaming as she wants until bedtime. And then we are very strict about cutting everything off at bedtime. Bedtime is sacred, like nobody breaks bedtime.
indeed.
Um, but kids, yeah, I mean, everybody knows, even me, I'm not child psychiatrist, but I know that the brain develops differently at different stages. And
Yeah.
so when little kids, they have no self-control.
Hmm.
And they don't develop self-control for years. And so similar, I kind of make it similar to like if you left a jar of candy just out and there are
Right.
no home rules about when you're allowed to eat that candy and no adult supervision, the kids will universally choose to eat the candy instead of actual food, right? And
Mhm.
so every parent knows, you have to put limits on junk food at
Yes.
home, and the parent supervision has to be there. And
Hmm.
there it's controversial as far as parenting, as far as, do you allow controlled amounts of junk food, depending on what age they are versus no junk food at all. And I think that I do have some issues with parents who are a little bit too rigid and too
Right, because
restrictive
then
about
how does the kid learn regulation, right?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
You know?
because our jobs as parents, how I see it, is we need to raise this child so that they are a
Right.
functional adult contributing to a society by the time they walk out the door. Okay.
Yeah. They will be
And
exposed to these things.
yes, and you can't put them in a bubble or raise them in a bubble, and then one day, they go to college and they walk out the door and there's no adult supervision anymore. How will they know how to deal with all these
Yeah.
things outside if they're not learning and getting exposed to it and learning how to control the exposures, okay, at a young age? And so, I think that is the same case with video games. Just like you would not allow a 5-year-old into an NC-17 movie. There are certain things they'll have nightmares for the next 3 years. It's like their brains are not mature enough to be able to process that kind of material. So you have to know your kid. And some kids they can like I have one of my close friends, she has a kid who is a boy who is exact same age as my daughter. And by the time my daughter was watching like Marvel movies, uh, her kid still couldn't tolerate like animated Moana movies. Like it was too violent. He would
mhm.
get scared. He would get nightmares. And, same age, but kind of different tolerances. So,
Yeah.
parents, you need to be involved. You need to know your kid. Best thing is to
Yeah.
share in the content with your child so you have that bonding and
Hmm.
shared experience and you know exactly what's going on and you're there and
You
you're
can
available to
process
talk
it with
about it,
them.
you process it
Yeah.
with them, etc. And then you get an idea of whether or not they're able to tolerate certain types of materials. So we got a good idea of how much violence that our kid can deal versus like scary pictures versus horror type of themes, that kind of a thing. And she doesn't do horror very well, but she can handle violence. So it's like it needs to be kind of a personalized level of
Yeah.
material exposure based on the maturity and the age of your child. And then of course
Mhm.
there's some kids who on the autistic spectrum, they will have a better experience with certain types of materials than others, and you have to adjust for that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, how do you feel like, I mean, autistic culture is its own culture in and of itself too. Um, and so, you know, how do you feel um gaming culture dovetails with autistic culture?
I find it helpful
Hmm.
because, first of all, there's a huge variety of games out there.
Yeah.
Games are very different. And that I think that's another thing that mental health professionals need to understand. You know, like we are way past the days of Mario and Tetris. Like
Hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
multi-billion dollar industry with all sorts of different games. And so there's a huge amount of choice in, you know, what kind of games feel comfortable for people who have certain autistic characteristics. Because I mean, and I'm not autistic, but from what I can understand, autism is also not homogenous. You know,
Yeah. No,
there's
it's not.
range, yeah. And so certain people will prefer or have certain, you know, or have lower or higher tolerances for certain types of inputs than others, and you kind of get to pick your world with games. You pick what feels comfortable for you, and you get to then enjoy that world in a way that gives you more control over the environment than what you've got in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. Predictability,
Mhm.
I think is huge. I do. I mean, I mentioned the world building also kind of like systematization. It can is huge for autistic people. Um, and these ways, kind of a culture of acceptance, acceptance of difference, acceptance of uniqueness. I think that's huge. I'm much bigger into board games, to be honest, than video games, but I also see a lot of overlap there in terms of board
Hmm.
gaming and
Hmm.
autistic culture. And so I think just seeing patterns, because we love patterns, and solving puzzles. Um, I have a board game called Everdell. Have you heard of Everdell, Dr. Chang? If you haven't, if it's okay if you
No,
haven't.
no.
Um, but anyway, so there's these little forest creatures, they're anthropomorphized forest creatures, and you collect resources to like play the cards, which builds your town of your little cards. And I love looking at the cards. Like sometimes just as a visual stim for myself, I'm just gonna like look at my cards, you know? I'm glad my husband thinks it's cute, right? So I'm not even like playing the game. I'm just looking at my Everdell cards. For my own personal like emotional regulation. Um and I played Everdell on a nightly basis. When we had to evacuate one of the hurricanes, we had to evacuate. I took my Everdell with me, and my husband didn't want to play with me because he's like, I could do it like once a month. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like make Everdell games with myself to soothe myself during our hurricane evacuation. So I think I could see I can understand what it in some ways I think what it can mean to neurodivergent people. It's more than just entertainment.
Hmm.
It can go much deeper. What does Halo mean to you, Bethany?
Yeah, so personally, I only play like Halo campaigns, so I don't know if y'all know a lot about
Okay.
Halo, but I don't really do a lot of the
I'm sure
online
Dr. Chang
gaming.
knows. I don't know much about Halo.
You know, if I play online with other people, it's for campaigns. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily to
Okay.
do, yeah, like a
Yeah.
battle or anything. But like you said, like the predictability of it, like there's so much comfort in that. Like you know the storyline, and you know where the weapons are, and you know where the secret weapons are, and you know where the Easter eggs are, and yeah, it's therapeutic on a rough day, and yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And don't we need that in the world right now? Yeah.
It's a good disconnect. It is.
What have games, what do you feel like gaming has meant to you personally, Dr. Chang? Or like, in terms of your personal emotional growth?
Oh wow. That
I
is a
know, hard
that is a
question.
that's a
You could take a
very
pause for a bit.
that's a very emotional question. Um, it's a refuge. Um,
A refuge.
I like that description. Yeah.
it's a safe place for me to go to. It's a restful place. It is a
Mm-hmm.
place where, like I mentioned before, I can let out aspects of myself and my personality that
Yeah.
would be inappropriate in, real life society type of situations. Um, especially like, after particularly frustrating patients, you can go
Mm,
in and kind of shoot things and it's okay. Just to kind that catharsis. And I sometimes I treat really complicated patients and my brain is just so tired
yeah.
by the day in certain ways. It's like there's something really relaxing about just focusing on watering your crops one square at a time,
Oh yeah.
just
I've
and
been
just
watering
hitting the
crops.
field and just harvesting the tomatoes,
I
that
know.
that kind of
I,
stuff.
I
There's
love
something
the
really
little farm
simple.
animals, and you come up
Yeah,
and you pet them and they go yee and the little heart
yeah,
pops up,
yeah, yeah,
right? And you pick up your chicken, you put your
yeah, yeah.
chicken down, you pick up the egg.
You know what's going to happen.
You throw it in a mayonnaise maker, you
Hmm.
get
Yep.
some
Been
mayonnaise
making a
and you
lot of
get,
mayonnaise these days
yes, yep,
when I
there's
can.
something so calming about that. I am a little, okay, I'm not a little, that's not fair. I'm a really big control freak. And it's like you can't, there's so many aspects of our life you just can't control. You
It's
can't
true.
control what's
Can't
going on,
predict, can't
yeah, in
control.
the society right now. You can't control your kid. You shouldn't, at the very least. But like it can come out in my game. It's like, yes, I want my farm exactly made this way. The buildings are going to be put in exactly these spots. It's going to be painted and decorated. Like that's how my control needs come out in a way that is
Yeah.
functional, and doesn't drive anybody crazy. And so
Yeah.
it's a great refuge for me. I will say that I'm not very social in my games. I know that the social component is a huge component for a lot of video game players, and I absolutely understand and support that. I become actually very antisocial with gameplay. I don't play well with others. Even though I met my husband over video games, like we tried playing MMORPGs together, and I wanted to
Yeah.
murder him. Again, that kind of
Yeah.
that control aspect comes out because we both prefer RPGs. And so RPGs, as some of you know, are really bad about subquests or side quests. And so we would be just walking through the field and then poop, a side quest comes up, like this person is saying something, he would just veer off instantly and be like, "Oh, we gotta do that side quest," and I'm like, "Ugh, we have 15 side quests on the menu already, and we haven't completed a single one. Can we please just check them off before?" He's like, "No, they're right there. You have to pick it up." Anyways, um, we'll want to murder him if we have to play together. Can't play with anyone. My daughter, complete chaos with her farms and how
Yeah.
she can't play with her, want to murder her too. And so it's like for me, I'm just gonna play by myself. One of the things that my husband is really laughing at me right now is, as I said, I'm really into Baldur's Gate 3 right now, which is
Hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons
I was
based.
looking it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's based on fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons rules. It's quite in many aspects that it can functionally within the game. It's very true to the D&D kind of world rules and stuff like that, which is why a lot of people really love it. I'm a D&D player as well, so I really enjoy it. But the classic example of D&D is you play in a party. You have different classes. You have the
Hmm.
healer, you've got the fighter, you've got like, the rogue or the thief, you've got the magic user, the caster, and you kind of plug each other's weaknesses, and as when you can do all that, it makes you stronger as a party. I couldn't do it. I could not deal with other party members in my group, even though I had so much control over what they did. It just was driving me crazy that I couldn't control every single one of them all the time. I got rid of all of them. So I am playing
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3
Don't want
on
that
my
stress.
own as a single character right now, and I'm having so much more fun than I ever
This is a
did
metaphor for
before.
psychiatry. Like we cannot control our patients. They're just out there,
And
right?
in many
And
ways,
it's
yeah,
complex.
it
You
is,
can't. You're
yeah.
like, yeah, but that
And in
game by
many ways
yourself.
it's harder because I am missing, like, I have no spell casting capability. I cannot fight very well. It's like I'm missing a lot of aspects, but I it's so much easier for me because I play a
Right.
rogue, a stealth monk. So I can
Okay.
hide in the shadows so that nobody can see me. And then I sneak up
Mm.
and then I do a lot of sneak attack damage, which does a lot of damage. And then I slink back into the shadows. And so it's great because I'm playing from a safe place. I can come out and I can kill things really fast and then disappear again and nobody can find me and I never get in trouble. And so I stay alive. And it's like, in a way, this is actually a lot easier for me to play with than having to constantly heal my magic user because he's squishy and he dies very easily. So it's like, you're
Right.
dead again. I'm wasting so many potions on you. So yeah, I'm a very antisocial player, but like
Hmm.
it feels good because it's like, okay, I've got my
Yeah.
control here. I can move this game along exactly the way I want to. And then it's like, okay, then I can put it down. I've kind of let go and,
Yeah.
decompress. And now I have energy to deal with the rest of the world again. So that was a
Hmm.
very long-winded answer to
Yep.
your
Yeah.
question, but
That makes sense. A refuge.
yes.
A refuge. Like a psychological refuge.
Yeah. And I mean, I have been known to, like on the weekends, if my kid does not need me, like I will play 12, 13 hours straight. I have pulled all-nighters as an adult. Just you put the kid to bed and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's my time to play. And before you know it, it's 4 in the morning. And it's like, oops, I have to
Yeah.
wake the kid up
Oopsies.
again in 3 hours. And the night is gone. And I do that, and I do it, I wouldn't say infrequently, like it
Okay.
happens, on a fairly frequent basis, but I am meeting my duties and requirements. My kid is alive, my practice is going, haven't killed anybody. I can you say that I am addicted because I am spending 12, 13 hours in a day gaming? No, because I can put it
Right.
down when I need to and do what I need to get done. I may do it groggy and needing 5 cups of coffee, but I can do it and I can get it done and I can get it done well. And then I can go back to gaming again. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
not
not
amount of,
about length of time,
yeah, not,
right?
Right.
yeah.
No, this is more about, is there a compulsion where you feel like you can't stop? Are you not getting other needs met in a healthy
Mhm.
way? Now, okay, so for people, but getting back to, um, you mentioned seeing a lot of patients, and exploring what are the unmet needs in their life that they're trying to get met through the video games. Uh, and having a large population of, you mentioned having a large population of young adults who are struggling to form relationships, get employment, get independence from parents. What do you feel like have been some of the most effective strategies that have worked for this population?
Well, a lot of them have untreated depression. Okay, that's just
Hmm.
been dragging on for years, that was not recognized, was not addressed. They didn't even realize that it was there. A lot of them have really severe social anxiety. Like they just can't tolerate being in social situations. And so, as a psychiatrist, I do a lot of med management, so I treat
Right.
them for those. I get the depression under control. I get the anxiety under better control. A lot of them have sleep apnea, actually, sleep disorders. Like they can't sleep, and if they can't sleep, they're up, and they're like, I might as well
Yeah.
get. And so their sleep cycle just gets more and more and more
Yeah.
disrupted. And so
That
I
makes
tell a
sense.
lot of them to go get sleep studies, actually. And because they don't, even when they sleep, like they don't get restful sleep. And so they're just kind of dragging and they have no energy to go out and do stuff. So the easiest thing is to sit in front of a computer and game. Um, and so
Yeah, really addressing physical health
yeah,
issues too.
I have them deal with their sleep disorders and get that treated, and a lot of them end up with sleep apnea. So I'm like, just do use the CPAP, you'll feel better, and a lot of them do. So you kind of look at what you can treat,
Yeah.
and then for a lot of them, like they have really bad social skills. And so they just keep having very negative experiences with social interactions because of their poor social skills. So you get them into social skills training with a good therapist who can really focus on that. Sometimes you get them into family therapy because sometimes it's a family dynamic issue where
Hmm.
they don't feel supported or safe within, their family structure, and that's why they
Or the
hide in their
family
room,
is
try to
extremely
avoid.
enabling.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
you try to get the family into some family therapy as well. So you figure out what is it about their real world that
right.
make them uncomfortable. And so you try to fix things so that them spending more time in the real world becomes more and more and more comfortable, and that will help them to be motivated to spend less and less time online.
Yeah. And I'm just putting on a note about the social skills because we don't want to treat traditional neurotypical social skills as like the right way to be,
Mhm.
versus letting them be unmasked and authentic while having skills to unmask and authentically autistic, um, while developing skills to um, initiate relationships and be in the world too. And the world is really harsh. It's tough. Um, I also want to note, like I think um the world young adulting today is different than young adulting, 20, 30 years ago, in terms of what people are facing. Like people can't really afford their own house or apartment today. The job market is different. So, I'm just giving service to like it's not I also feel like there's this concept of, oh, there's just these lazy, failure to thrive, young adults. And I think that that is a very reductionistic and stigmatized view of what's happening to young adults who are not launching, into
Yes.
the type of fulfilling life that they really want. Yeah.
Something else that is actually really helpful, working with these people is utilizing their social support online. A lot of
Yes.
these people, they have real relationships, real
Yes. And
friendships,
I'll
real
hear the parents say,
connections.
"Oh, those aren't real friends, online
No,
friends." I'm
yeah,
like,
I mean,
"Yes,
yeah,
they are."
they are. They
Yeah.
really are. And
Yeah.
sometimes like they feel more connected and more accepted and more understood with those
Hmm.
online relationships than by any, in real world people. And the thing is, I think people who are neurodivergent, they kind of, it's almost like recognizes like. They kind of recognize each other's characteristics,
There's
and they
chemistry.
feel more they feel more comfortable with each other. So they
Yes.
do start to kind of form, bonds
Yes.
amongst
So
themselves,
like
and they're
helping
really supportive of each
yes,
other.
helping autistic people find a supportive autistic community where they can be authentically autistic is super key.
Yeah. And so I always also try to ask them, like, what is your online community like? Like, who are your main
Hmm.
connections? Are they in, certain Discord groups where, they're talking about, a lot about certain games? Are they doing a lot of in-game chatting with specific groups that they game with on a regular basis? That kind of a thing. And what, depending on what kind of like group or connections that they have, oftentimes actually encourage them to let their closer or more comfortable, people that they trust, connections know that they are getting mental health treatment. And, to tell them, my psychiatrist or my therapist is recommending that, this week I try spending 30 minutes outside in the park or outside of the house today, like as an
Hmm.
exercise just to get me out and get some fresh air. And, it's like share with them what
Hmm.
your clinicians are, suggesting that you do. And what I often find is that their supportive community will be like, yes, do
It's
that. That sounds like a
accountability.
great
Yeah.
Right,
idea. And then it
exactly.
will
The
actually keep them
accountability buddy.
accountable.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like the next day it's like, hey, did you go out and do what your therapist told you? You haven't? Go do it right now. It's like they kind of
Yes.
cheerlead each
Yes.
other on. And it's
Yeah, you get
incredible
some
what
mental
they can
health
do for each other.
cheerleading.
Yeah. That's a
Totally.
huge resource that I think a lot of mental health
Yes.
professionals are not realizing they can utilize.
Mhm.
Hmm. And sometimes, because we have telehealth nowadays, right? People from great distances away can participate in an appointment. And I've had people have internet friends participate in their appointments at times, as a source of great support. They can give insights. And sometimes, it's just really it's very intimidating for people to do this whole mental health treatment thing. Um, and to have a bring a friend option can be really impactful.
There are a lot of therapists who do in-game therapy. So they
Yes,
will
I was going to
hold
talk
their
about that
groups.
too.
Yeah, they will
Thank
hold their
you.
their groups,
Yes.
their groups like in Minecraft or in
Yes.
Animal Crossing or sometimes in Stardew Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a lot of therapists who work with vets, and they will have the groups come in for a Halo session or a oh geez, I'm forgetting right the more military
Call of Duty.
tiered Call of Duty,
Mm-hmm.
where the vets feel more comfortable. And
Mhm.
I've talked to so many vets who have said that, who had PTSD, and they were
Mm-hmm.
getting treatment for that. When they will play Call of Duty with other vets, sometimes people who they knew in the military, sometimes who didn't, but who had kind of similar experiences, like they were all in Iraq or they were all in certain conflicts. And as they're playing, they'll kind of talk to each other. And they'll be like, hey, yeah, I'm having some relationship trouble with stuff. What's going on? And then the other people will be
Mm-hmm.
supportive. And
Yeah.
so that's how they're kind of getting their support. Whereas
Yeah.
outside of the game, like they're not
Yeah.
talking. Like they won't share how they feel, what
They
their
have to
struggles
do that
are.
parallel activity
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And like that in game when they're all holding the virtual, rifles and,
Mhm.
flanking people and talking strategy and stuff like that's when some of the feelings come out.
Yeah.
Totally. Um, I've also next episode we're gonna have Ashton Pizza come on. He's they're a therapist who uses gaming to do some exposure therapy in OCD. And so that's another way it's being used too.
Hmm. Virtual
Yeah.
reality is so helpful for treating phobias, or for exposure therapies of a whole bunch of different types. There's a lot of research being done, especially in Europe right now, on utilizing virtual reality for treating psychosis. I mean, treating as in like helping people to tolerate the psychotic symptoms like hallucinations, and to learn techniques for how to kind of take themselves out of it when the hallucination. So it's like co-training in a sense, and then also treating PTSD. There's been huge strides for using um, yeah, um, virtual reality for treating PTSD.
That's so cool.
So which game do you feel like has had the biggest impact on your life, Dr. Chang? Oh
Impact.
no, hard question.
Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy, specifically Final Fantasy
'Cause
7.
that goes way back. That
Mhm.
probably goes way back to your younger years. Final Fantasy.
Medical
When did Final
school,
Fantasy come? Yeah, med school.
med school. Um, First 2 years, when it was basically just classroom work, my schedule was gaming from about 6 p.m. Well, actually about 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., sleeping from about 6 a.m. to noon. I didn't go to
Okay.
college.
Okay.
And then getting up at noon and studying until dinner time, eat dinner, start gaming again. And that was when I managed to get a pirated copy of Final Fantasy VII because I was a starving med student on loans. I had no money. What can I say?
It comes
Um,
out.
don't arrest me, please.
Statute of
But
limitations. You're good. You're good.
yeah, Final Fantasy VII, it was the very first game where I felt so emotionally connected to the characters. And I know I'm not alone because like the world who has played that game when one particular character died suddenly. Like we are all
Mm,
still like there's a raw
right?
spot in our heart. We are all
Yeah.
still recovering from the shock of that death. And it was so dramatic that recently they're doing a remake of Final Fantasy VII called Rebirth. And
Mm.
they're basically remaking the whole game, extending it, putting a lot more character development and other gameplay mechanics in, and trying to fix that incident. Like, when people are talking about Final Fantasy VII and they're
Okay,
saying
is this going to be
the
healing
the
for a
moment
community?
in in capitals, like we all know it's like what that moment was
Mm-hmm.
because it was just so traumatic. And the shock and the mourning, that the grief
Mm-hmm.
that I went through, like with that game and with the characters and with what happened, like that was the first time when I put it down and I was like, oh my gosh, that was like an emotional journey for me.
Hmm.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so I think that was like the life-changing moment. I was like, wow, like this is an experience. It's not just playing with pixels and stuff. Like I
Mhm.
really got into it.
Yeah. Transformative.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So a couple more questions. Um,
I have a
far Oh, go
question.
ahead, Bethany then.
Probably more of like
Bethany.
a general question, but I'm just so curious. Like, how would you treat gaming addiction? Like,
Are there
what would be the steps?
pharmacotherapy options? Like, are we doing naltrexone,
Mm.
Topamax type of stuff
Yeah, and
too?
the book talks about
Yeah.
that. There's a whole chapter
Okay.
on that. But yeah, I mean, you're basically treating it like a chemical dependency because the driver for that addiction is the dopamine
Mm-hmm.
surge.
Mhm.
And so that pleasure, immediate chemical pleasure sensor that just kind of hits and hits and hits and hits. And that's what they're constantly seeking. They're constantly seeking another dopamine hit. They can't regulate or tolerate the loss of that dopamine surge. And so you use naltrexone, you use the Topamax, you use the valproic acid, some of the mood stabilizers to dull it, gabapentin, and
Mm-hmm.
then, usually there's usually, just like in other addictions, comorbid depression, comorbid anxiety, sleep disorder issues. So you address all that and you treat those pharmaceutically as well. And then, for the actual addiction, you basically need to teach the brain to reset with the dopamine expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while I don't usually condone or support the whole complete disconnect with games because people's like their connections are in that game, but for true addiction, I do
Mhm.
feel that a complete disconnect is a good idea. So that's the people that you like send out into the middle of nowhere with no cell phone reception and no Wi-Fi, and you let
Yeah.
their brains just kind of reset for a while.
Hmm.
Okay. So,
For how long?
oh.
Depends on the
Mhm.
person. They should also be getting a lot of therapy during that time and a lot of coaching. And so whether or not they're learning and feel like they're able to tolerate triggers. Because one of the things that's really hard about treating video game addiction is it's so hard to get away from the trigger. Okay,
Hmm.
like
Your phone or yeah. Mhm.
if it's like cocaine or heroin, it's
Mhm.
like, well, you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself a new social group and you stop talking to the dealers.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you can move to a new place that disconnects you from the access, that you were used to get the drugs or stuff like that. You can keep your house completely alcohol free. You tell your friends you're a recovering addict. You have your friends support you and like making sure that you're not getting drinks, when you go out together and you're ordering non-alcoholic stuff. But it's like, how do you get away from getting on a computer?
Mhm.
It's like video games are so pervasive. It's in movies. It's in, there's gamification aspects in education. Like your kid could be playing video games for school, like right in front of you. That kind of stuff. I mean, Tetris and Angry Birds and, Wordle. It's
Mhm.
like all that is like on your phone. It's so easy to access. And so I think in a way, like helping to prevent relapse is very highly dependent on teaching the person to regulate, to self-regulate, and to seek out games that do not necessarily have that dopamine surge. Okay. And to allow
Yeah.
them to
Okay, so
learn to
step
play
downs
certain,
almost.
yeah, like
Yeah.
a de-escalated game that they can
Okay.
enjoy, but not cause that dopamine surge that so that they can play a little bit and then learn to put it down and walk away. So I think that is very difficult, but I think that's where treating the depression and the anxiety and stuff is good because they're not then trying to self-medicate with game playing.
Yeah. Yeah. What is underneath? Um, there's this saying about addiction. People don't do the thing or use the drug because of how it makes them feel is to escape how they feel when they're sober.
Yeah.
Uh, so what is that? What is that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we're coming to a close. Dr. Cheng, what are the main messages you want to send mental health professionals out there? Okay, like actually going to dramatize the question even more. You have all the mental health professionals in the world and in the audience. Our podcast is not that popular. Right? Like what are the main messages, the big messages to send?
So this is basically my point in my chapter in the book.
Hmm.
Understand that video games, it's a culture and a media. It is not homogenous. It is
Hmm.
not a dysfunctional behavior in and of itself. So learn about it with your patient like you would any type of culture that the patient would be
I
coming
like
in.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we get taught since medical school,
Yes.
be culturally competent.
Yes.
Learn about your culture, meet your patient where they are.
Hmm.
Are they do they have cultural connotations to how they view hallucinations or like if they're from the Asian culture, what's the family dynamics? Stuff is like we're trained to understand, make the effort, learn about the culture that the patient is coming from, because that affects how they view the world and themselves and treatment and all that. And similarly, this is a culture. Give it at least the respect for understanding that this is a culture that people live in every single day. Um, so many people in this world play video games. Like over a third of the US of the world population play video games in some way, shape, or form. And so you can't escape this culture. And the world is becoming more and more digital. Video
Yeah.
games are only going to get more prevalent. It's not going away. And so you need to understand that most likely, if you're seeing a patient, they're probably doing some amount of gaming, even if it's very little. Even if it's just they're playing like 2 minutes of Wordle or something while they're waiting for the bus to show up, and then they put it away and they'll play it again for the rest of the day. There's some form of gaming going on, and we as mental health professionals need to be able to accept that and work with it with our patients.
And play is therapeutic too,
Yes.
for
Mhm.
to have play. And so I think you bring up, you know, major tenets of neurodiversity affirming care, which by the way is good for all people, not just neurodivergent people. Um, be curious, be more explorative than prescriptive. Investigate the function of a particular behavior in an individual's life before you try to just extinguish it.
Yeah.
Without fully understanding what it means to that individual.
Hmm.
So, thanks so much, Dr. Cheng, for coming in and, um, emphasizing how vital it is to be curious about your patient's world and their unique forms of play as part of their culture and as part of their identity and as part of their community. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's a good summary. Thank you very much for inviting me today. This was a blast.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
good
for
to
being
meet
brave
you,
enough to
Bethany.
join us too, Bethany. for the first
Of
time.
course.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Chronically Real and Clinically Relevant. You can find us at stacycreatormd.com and
OCDandanxietycolorado.com, and we encourage y'all to keep it real
and stay curious.